Adeline, good morning.
Good morning, Mina.
Yeah, and thank you for joining us. I know that European Commission is keeping you quite busy these days
Yeah, absolutely.
with all the requirements they're coming up with. And I know that the industry you are coming from is being very regulated, and considering a big focus of the European Commission on green transition and all the noise around the Green Deal, I believe that you have those hot days almost every day, right? And Friday is not exception for
No,
that.
no, definitely not.
Yeah, so what we need is actually to understand better what are the regulatory trends in Europe, what is happening in Brussels bubble, what is actually already in place, and what are the challenges to comply to the regulations that are in force, and all the producers of packaging and producers of packaged goods have to comply to. But we are also interested what is upcoming because of course it should be part of the business plan for everybody. We have to set our expectations about what can be the additional costs to comply to these regulations. But one thing is absolutely clear and certain for everybody. Those producers who want to access European market, they have to be very careful about their compliance capacity, right? They have to be very prepared of what will be those regulations, and how they can align with the production to those regulations. So please tell us. We are very interested to find out what's going on.
Thank you, Mina. And good morning to everybody from a very rainy Brussels. I don't know what it's like over there, but it's really one of those grey mornings, horrible mornings in Brussels. So my first test is to share my screen. So Mila, I'm going to do that. Please let me know if you can see it.
Oh, it's perfect now. You did it.
Perfect. Oh, brilliant. So I've passed the first test. Okay, so what I'd like to do is try to answer the questions that Mina has put to us to give you a kind of overview of the main legal trends that the companies who are producing in Europe have to comply with. And by definition, anybody who wants to supply the EU market needs to kind of comply with as well. It's a big challenge, Mina, to try and tell everybody about everything in 20 minutes. So I've had to pick some priorities. So I've picked the biggest priorities. But maybe just before I go into that, I would like just to give you a few facts and figures about our industry. Some figures for our industry. So we represent FEVE represents the European container glass manufacturing industry. Over 90% of the producers in the EU are members of our federation, so we're pretty representative, and including, of course, our colleagues on the call this morning from Vetropack. And roughly, we have plants throughout the whole of the European Union, and we support over 125,000 jobs in Europe. So it's quite an important sector. And I would just maybe like to point out why glass is such an important sector for packaging. We're serving the food and beverage sector, the pharmaceutical sector, the perfumery and cosmetics sector. So all the industries that are using glass. And the reason they use glass is because glass is made of virgin raw materials, but also very high levels of recycled glass. The raw materials that we use are abundant. They are not scarce. We are a local sector, so mostly our suppliers are based very close to our factories, are not too far away, and the materials we use are sustainably sourced. Another advantage of glass, of course, it's inert. And that means it's non-toxic. So there's no chemicals migrating out of the packaging, getting into the product inside. There is the ability of glass to protect also what's inside, because none of the aromas or the vitamins or whatever you're trying to protect can get out of the glass. So the inertness of glass is a major, major asset as to why all these companies across Europe choose glass for their packaging. It's also a single layer material, so no plastics are required inside the glass bottle. A glass can be in direct contact with food. And of course, from a circular point of view, from an environmental point of view, it's recyclable and reusable. In fact, it is, we say 100% recyclable because no matter how many times you recycle glass, it is always fit for food contact. So you might know that some other materials do have a problem in having or using recycled content for food products. In glass, no matter how many times it's recycled, no matter what it has contained in a previous life, it is always suitable for food contact. And that's a big reason why we have very high levels of recycling in the EU. It's over 80% today. And as I said, more than half of the raw materials we use to make glass today is actually recycled glass. It's very, very high, and probably is the highest of any packaging material. You'll be hearing a little bit from Vetropack about the great work they're doing on lightweighting. In general, our industry is trying to take as much glass out of our bottles as possible to use the minimum amount required. And we are progressively doing that. Over the last 20 years, our bottles have become 30% lighter. And the last final sort of benefit of glass is that, of course, it's a material that can be designed, it's transparent, you can see the product inside, and sizes, you have different colors, and it's basically the perfect material to show off a product on the shelves. And so they're the key benefits. And I think it's important just to remind what they are. And that's why just a few figures about how glass, the market share of glass in the European Union. So last year in 2022, our members produced the highest number of containers ever in the history of our lives. So we had record production in 2022. When you look at the market and how that is divided up between the different materials, glass is 1/3 market share of the beverage packaging market. And it is one of the most recyclable of all those materials in the beverage market. But it's also, and you will see, very important because glass is also reusable. And so half of all the glass that's put on the market in the European Union is today in reusable glass. Okay, so half the beverages that are sold in the European Union that are sold in glass are in returnable glass. That's very, very high. It's by far the highest. By contrast, if you look at PET, returnable PET, only 4% of the beverage market is packed in reusable PET. And so glass has an important market share in the European market. Now, you asked me to talk, Mila, you asked me to talk about the challenges. And so I'm going to pick two challenges, the major challenges. The first challenge is decarbonization. And the second one is making packaging completely circular. They're the two big things that will impact our industry in the future and will impact Moldovan companies selling glass into Europe in the future. So the first thing on decarbonization, the European Union wants to become the first region in the world to be completely climate neutral. So no industry, no transport, no housing, nothing, nobody should be emitting CO2 by 2050. And so they've brought in a climate law that for the glass manufacturing industry means that we have to be climate neutral by 2050 at the latest. And they have set interim goals for us. And by 2030, all our companies in the European Union must reduce their CO2 emissions by 62%, taking a 2005 baseline. And that's hugely challenging. And there will be new targets set by 2040. That might be even 90% by 2040. So we are in a situation that is dramatically going to change the way that we produce glass in Europe. But I'm very proud of the fact to work for a sector that has a pathway to achieving that. And this is what we're doing. This is how we are addressing decarbonization. So maybe to say, where do our CO2 emissions come from today? 80% of our CO2 emissions basically come from the energy we use to melt glass. We're melting glass today by using natural gas. And the pathway for us is to switch to green energy and use electrification or hydrogen and maybe a bit of biomass. So these are the big areas that we need. It's an energy transition. We need to get off fossil fuels and get on to green energy. And we call that transition the furnaces for the future. And all our companies are working on these transitional furnaces. The second source of CO2 emissions in our industry is coming from the raw materials, the virgin raw materials we use. Now, what's very interesting is that once you replace virgin raw materials by recycled glass, you can eliminate that 20%. So that's why our industry is extremely focused on making sure that we collect every last bottle in Europe and that it's recycled and put back into our furnaces, because we can address 20% of our CO2 emissions by just simply replacing virgin raw materials with recycled glass. And we have a big program called Close the Glass Loop that I'll say a few words on later on. So they're the two pathways that we're following. And let me just point out that we're not waiting for 2050 to do this. It's not even just aspirational. Our companies are already announcing many investments across Europe. And they're just a list of some of those investments. But we are tracking every single company's announcements. And I invite you to look at our website. You'll see it there, the feve.org website, where you'll have a list of all the investments and the announcements that are made. So the message is, we're not waiting for 2050. It's already happening today. And so let me just say a few words about what we're doing about glass recycling in order to address that other 20%. Of course, recycling is not just dependent on the glass industry. It's a system. It depends on the municipalities. It depends on the recyclers. It depends on the producers. It depends on the brands. Many, many different organizations are involved. And we're mobilizing all those organizations to come around the table to commit that by 2030, 90% of all glass packaging that's put on the market will be collected for recycling. And this is something that we are working very closely at national level and at European level in order to share information and best practices in order to achieve that goal. And today we started this, I think we had something like 75% collection for recycling. We are now 80%. So we are on the way, but it's very, very challenging because it's about mobilizing lots of actors to all work together to achieve this one goal. So maybe that's a good transition to the packaging itself. So the second huge challenge that we have is to make sure our packaging is circular. Now, of course, glass is already recyclable and reusable. So the challenge in Europe is to make all packaging reusable and recyclable by 2030. So we already are very well placed in this new packaging and packaging waste regulation, which has been proposed by the Commission and which is under negotiation right now. So what I'm going to maybe just to start with for your audience is to say what I'm going to present is under negotiation. It could change because the discussions are happening right now. But I wanted to pick out a few things because I think for Moldovan producers who want to target the European Union market, these points I've picked out I think are very relevant for you to know. But the ink is not dry on the paper yet, and it won't be dry until probably next April, okay? So the first thing I want to point out is that the European Union wants to reduce the amount of packaging put on the market. They call that packaging waste reduction target. And of course, everybody can agree that we need to reduce packaging waste. But when you look closely at the text that the European Union have proposed, it is about reducing the amount of packaging placed on the market, despite whether that packaging is reusable or despite whether it's recyclable. And it's quite tough. They're proposing to reduce by 5% the amount of packaging put in the market by 2030, the baseline being 2018. That needs to be further reduced by 10% by 2035 and by 15% by 2040. And if you look at a business as usual scenario, where the market is expected to grow, this essentially, those reduction targets essentially would mean that in 2040, for example, we have to do with 37%, almost 40% less packaging put on the market in the European Union. And I think this is very crucial for Moldovan producers because you are actually, you're exporting a lot to the European Union. So maybe the impact will be that you might be exporting less in the future. And so something that we are fighting against is that this is an overall target, meaning that you simply switch from glass, which is heavy, to a light material, and you can reduce your amount of packaging placed on the market. These are weight-based targets. So we are campaigning for the fact that these targets should apply to all materials and not just one overall reduction target, because that would favor simply a switch from glass to plastics. And so that's the first big challenge that we're trying to fight. So look out for less packaging to be capable of being sold in Europe in the future. Then packaging minimization. What the European Union wants to do is they want to reduce the amount of over-packaging. I think we can all agree that when you buy something from, say, Amazon, and you receive it at home, it's a huge big box with a tiny little thing inside, over-packaging. Okay, get rid of that, that's okay. But they're applying that also to primary packaging. And they don't want people or companies to use a primary packaging that could be considered over-packaging. So, for example, a wine bottle that weighs 550 grams, is that over-packaging? If you can have a wine bottle that only weighs 350 grams. And so maybe the wine bottle that's weighing 550 grams is because it has embossing on it. Or because it has a kind of, that pump up that allows you to pour out the wine. That adds weight. And so what the European Union have done is they said, okay, do you know what? You're not going to be allowed to use fancy packaging to market your product if that adds weight. So they have decided that they will disallow in the future marketing as a function of packaging if it adds weight. So we fear that this is going to go to bring in standard bottles, all bottles looking the same. And that's a disaster for our customers. It's a disaster for brands. So we're campaigning that intellectual property rights will be recognized in packaging minimization, so that wine bottles that have a pump up and the bottom of the bottle are allowed to continue to do so, because that's part of the cultural heritage of that bottle from a certain region. And so we're campaigning on that. One of the most significant changes also in this new proposal is reuse targets. So reuse targets are introduced for the very first time. And they are quite significant. So first of all, to give you an order of magnitude, I've put the targets here on this slide, but please note that these targets could change. It's under negotiation. But the proposal from the Commission was to say that beer and all products that are based on spirit drinks. So, you know, if you can buy seltzers or, you know, gin and tonics already, sort of, you just buy a gin and tonic and, you know, take it away to go or whatever. All those kind of spirit-based drinks, water, soft drinks. By 2030, 10% of all those products put on the market in the European Union must be in reusable packaging. And it goes to 25% by 2040. And the reusable packaging needs to be conceived for reuse with a guaranteed minimum number of trips and accompanied by a reuse system. So you can't just put a product on the market and say that's reusable. It has to be actually part of a system. And of course, that reusable bottle needs to be recyclable at the end of life. So this is pretty significant. That means that today, when I showed you the market figures for glass, 1/3 of the beverage packaging is in glass, with half of that already in reuse. I mean, even these figures will have an impact on glass, because we will, the reuse section is expected to grow. Wines, the proposal is to have 5% reuse by 2030 and 15% by 2040. And spirits have been exempt from the reuse targets in the proposal. But lots of politicians and countries are saying, you know, negotiating this. And so now the current situation is that spirits are now have also to comply with reuse targets. And so those targets are being negotiated. It could be even higher than what's on the page here at the moment. And so what we're trying to do is we are trying to get across the fact that sorry, I just have a message here. Say, Barbara is requesting remote control of your screen. Am I going to approve that, Mila? Or just ignore it?
Just ignore.
Okay. Yeah, we're trying to get across the idea that for wines and spirits, for example, they travel very long distances. I'm sure there's some spirits from Moldova that you're selling into Europe. I mean, do you want to bring back the whole way to the plant in Moldova to get refilled? I mean, does this make sense? It doesn't make sense. But reuse can make sense for short distances and for local markets. But once you're dealing with a product that has to travel long distances across borders, it doesn't make sense. So we're trying to we're trying to convince politicians that this doesn't always make sense, and for wines and spirits and any products that have to travel long distances, that they shouldn't be imposed without taking into account the kind of product and where it's actually being sold. So that's for reuse. And so let me move decline. Recyclability. So I'm just watching my time. Recyclability. This is also new. for the very first time, all packaging will have to be designed for recycling. It'll have to be separately collected, sorted, and recycled at scale. And we are very happy to see that they've introduced performance grades for recycling, because we know not all recycling is the same. And a package that says, I'm recyclable, well, really, is it 10% recyclable? Is it 40% recyclable? And using glass, we're 100% recyclable. So we think that this grading is very good. It means that you have grades that would mean you would get grade A if 95% of the packaging you place in the market is recyclable. And this will correspond to a lower fee, an extended producer responsibility fee, an EPR fee, when you're putting that product in the market. And if your packaging is less than 70% recyclable, out of the market, gone. So we welcome this. And I want to just say a couple of words on DRS. Deposit return schemes. I don't know whether you're discussing this in Moldova, but we are against deposit return schemes as a collection system for glass to be recycled. This is the most inefficient way to collect glass for recycling. We want glass to be collected in bottle banks or door to door, as is the case today across the whole of the European Union. And we're very happy that the Commission has agreed with that. And so there will be no mandatory DRS for glass collection. Of course, a DRS to collect back reusable glass, that's okay. We support that, of course, but not as a collection mechanism for recycling. I'd like to also tell you about the Glass Hallmark website that we have that is for business. So I guess most of your audiences are in the business of glass, and I would want to bring you to this website because we have a lot of materials there that you might find useful. So it's called the glasshallmark.com website. So in conclusion, watch out for some big restrictions on glass packaging being put on the market in Europe. And not just for glass, it'll be for all packaging. We basically are telling the Commission, we support waste reduction. So we support, okay, reducing the amount of packaging put on the market, but targets for every material and not just overall target. We are trying to convince them that we cannot lose the diversity of design of our bottles in Europe because the brands need it. There's millions of products out there. They need the branding of the bottle to stand out on the shelves. And so minimizing the packaging should also respect the intellectual property rights and enable packaging to play a marketing role. We are very happy that on the recyclability proposals, and I think we don't have a problem, glass will not have a problem to achieve those goals. We are perfectly fine with the reuse targets because glass already is a leader in reuse, but it shouldn't be considered as always the perfect solution in every case. It's not the case. And we have a pathway, very clear pathway for energy transition. We are 3,000 years old. We have made many transitions in the past where we will make this one. And so I leave you with that positive note. Thank you, Minna.
Oh yeah, Adeline, thank you so much for finishing on a positive note, right? Because some of the conclusions you've presented prior to it looks to be quite concerning. And I'm sure there will be questions, but let me ask a couple of questions from me. Then I really would like to hear from Nicola and Tanya, because probably they will be adding on the presentation that you have just delivered from the perspective of the glass container producers' point of view. But my question is, and I want to congratulate you on the fact that the glass is winning the grounds, and you have so much glass packaging used in 2022. Do you think it's already the result of this whole green transition movement, or it was like a natural evolution of things. I mean, do you think that all the discussions and aspirations to a more sustainable future already started to work? One thing, and second thing, if you can share with us your opinion, in what way these possible regulatory evolutions are going to impact the packaging price. On one side, it may seem that it can maybe reduce the price of the glass packaging. Why not? Glass containers, if they are going to be uniform and no sophisticated creativity will be applied on it to add on the price. On the other side, all the investments that now companies have to do to comply to those regulations and all the re-engineering they have to do may actually be translated in an additional cost for the producers of goods and for the final consumers. What are your expectations?
Thank you, Mina. So, I mean, just your first question, is the Green Deal and all this, the focus on sustainability, is this driving the market for glass? Yeah, I definitely think so. But, you know, there is, you can argue, is the legislation changing the mindset of people, or are the people changing the legislators? And so I think in Europe, in the EU, I mean, you see among consumers, there is a huge demand for sustainable living. And, you know, I mean, there's people who are stopping to eat meat, there's people who want to live much more sustainable lives. And so there's been a huge public opinion for all companies to do more, to actually, you know, make things sustainably. And so plastics has you know, basically come under attack because you see plastics in the ocean, you see plastics being littered. It's littered plastics that is a problem, and there's a huge understanding among consumers that this is unacceptable, and so it has given the opportunity then for somebody like glass to come in, and we don't have the same issues. Now we do have issues, but we were able to at least address that you know it's inert. If it is littered, it doesn't damage the environment, and so yes, the legislation helps then drive manufacturers to become, you know, to basically improve the way that they produce goods. So that is definitely helping to kind of make the case for glass. But I would say to you that, you know, asking me, will the price come down? So first of all, we don't talk about prices because in the trade association, we have no idea whether the price will come down. But I can tell you that, as you point out, becoming more sustainable for glass means that we have to decarbonize. 0 molecule of CO2. The cost to put those investments in place is huge. So I don't know how will that pan out in the end. Will it, you know, will it result in a higher or lower pricing? I don't know. But I would definitely say that the investments are huge. And electricity, for example, if we're looking at electricity is very high cost. But maybe electricity will come down because, let's be honest, I mean, everybody is going to have to use electricity. So maybe it'll be affordable. So I'm afraid I can't talk about I have no idea about the price, but certainly the cost will increase in the short term.
Yeah, actually, yeah. The correct question would be about costs rather than prices, right?
Yeah, and can we pass on those costs? I don't know.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thank you so much. And if you stay with us for some more time, I believe there will be questions, and please communicate on that. Nicola, let's continue this very interesting discussion. You are operating in Europe, but you also operate on Moldovan market. and you actually can make this difference of what is currently what is going on at the European level and what is going to be relevant very soon for your Moldovan customers. What are the regulatory trends that are still just discussions, and maybe you are not in a hurry to comply to it, and are still kind of working on your traditional way? But what other trends are very important to take care of for both, like your European customers, but also Moldovan customers who are interested to supply to European market? And then Tanya, please join the discussion to let us know how is your marketing evolving? What are you doing to redesign, reconceptualize, to change the concept of your packaging of glass containers, so that it is compliant to the regulations, but it is also attractive to the consumer? So let's discuss that.
Okay, bună ziua. Hello everybody. Thank you, Mila, for the invitation, and also thank you, Adeline, for the very good presentation. So I will share my screen. Can you see it?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, so Adeline already spoke about, what are the regulatory trends, so what will come out of legal requirements, and then my colleague Tanya, and also my colleague Tanya will speak about, consumer trends, and I will try to also to answer what as a company we are doing to address those new regulations, so mandatory, and also the trends, and I will maybe also say something about what, according to me, the users of the packaging, any kind of packaging in Moldova should do, according to me. And I would like to say also that, you see that a lot of regulation is for 2030, and it's basically tomorrow, 2030. So I think we all have to start right now to think about this and to prepare, because really it's going very fast. It's only 7 years, and we don't have so much time. So yeah, I will try to explain, as I say, how we are trying to align with these new legal requirements and also the consumer trends. And then my colleague Tanya will explain a bit more about, the trends and the consumer preferences, and what we are doing, some good practices from our side. So as Adeline said, definitely for all the companies in Europe, carbon emissions is really key. Definitely, it's not only about glass, it's about all the companies. So it's definitely something that is mandatory. You can see here, one of our plants in Croatia. We have put solar panels on the roof, so it's definitely something that we are working since some years now, because this plant was built in 2019. So as many industries, we have committed to a science-based target initiative. So what it means, that in 2015 the United Nations have signed the Paris Agreement to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees. And last year, as Vetropack, we have committed to set a target aligned with that. So we will basically also contain the global warming to 1.5 degrees, which means, as Adeline said, roughly divide by 2, so reduce by 50% our emissions in 7 years. So until 2030. So as Adeline said, as an industry, and in our specific case in Vetropack, we have clear plans to do that. We are now developing a decarbonization roadmap. We will finalize it this year, so in the next months, and then submit the target for validation. We are evaluating new technologies, as Adeline said, so increasing electrification of our furnaces, so switching natural gas to electricity. Of course, we are improving also the efficiency of the process, our process, and the energy recovery. And we are switching also to renewable electricity, because if you just switch to electricity, it doesn't work. So we are also switching to renewable electricity, installing solar panels, but also buying renewable electricity. And then last but not least, we are also switching materials to low carbon raw materials. So we are, for example, evaluating no CO2 soda. Second topic, of course, is circularity. So Adeline spoke a lot, about this upcoming regulation, the so-called packaging and packaging waste regulation, PPWR. Again, it's for tomorrow. The targets are for 2030. So I think all of us should be prepared. Not only is glass packaging, because I think we are pretty much in a good shape. But if I think about other materials, there is really a lot to do and a lot of challenges. So just very quickly, I think as a glass, we are very lucky. We have a very good material in terms of circularity. So Adeline said, it's natural. Basically, it's made of sand, So as Adeline said, if it goes into the environment, it will come back sand, so completely inert and not harmful to the environment. Second topic that also Adeline said is safe. So there is no toxic, substances that goes into the product, into the wine or so on. So, and it protects the wine or whatever, for decades. So it's really a nice material. Then if we see also from a consumer, point of view, it's seen as premium. So yeah, we'll see also on the consumer trends, this is really preferred material, seen as sustainable and high quality. And then last but not least, of course, glass is, 100% and infinitely recyclable. And then a big difference, it's not only recyclable, but it's recycled. Because, some materials, they say, yeah, it's recyclable, but in reality, they are not collected, they are not sorted, and therefore they are not recycled. In our case, roughly in Europe, we are talking about more than 50% of recycled content in the bottles. In our case, in Vetropack, last year we had 57% recycled content. And then it's a reusable material. So if you think about what the European Union is deciding in this moment, we are pretty already, let's say, already compliant. So just to summarize also what European Union is saying, we spoke about waste reduction. There is a target to reduce waste from the European Union. In our case, what we are doing is we are reducing the weight of the bottles, so we are lightweighting, and we are also able to reuse the bottles. So if you use several times a bottle, basically you are avoiding the production of waste. Second topic is packaging minimization, as Adeline said, and also in that case, we are lightweighting our bottles. Then reuse, and I think glass is really well placed for that. And then the last topic was about recyclability and if really recycled. And also in that case, glass is on a good shape. Just a thought from my side, if you are using other kind of materials, you have to think about, how you will comply with this new regulation. Because if you think about other materials, this is not a given, like reusable, like recycled, recyclable. You need to watch very carefully to the packaging that you are using. It's a suggestion from my side. Right weighting, I already spoke about that. My colleague Tanya will show some examples. We have a very good knowledge to reduce the weight. And I think here we need to cooperate together, between the packaging producer and the user of the packaging. Because of course, maybe if you right weight a bottle, if you reduce the weight of the bottle, you have to change a little bit the shape. So there must be some flexibility also from the user. And we are perfectly, available to discuss and to evaluate together the reduction. We have also made an innovation. Also, my colleague, we spoke about that. We call it EcoVi. It's a bottle that is lightweight and also reusable or refillable. So it's a new technology that allows, to reduce the weight of the bottle by more than 30%. So there are a lot of advantages, of course. You produce, less glass, so, you have less environmental impact, less waste, also a better also aspect. And of course, you are also able to save, on the transport because it's lighter. It takes less space in the trucks. So it's a really nice innovation. And last but not least, Adeline touched on that also, we are part of the Close the Glass Loop initiative. So the initiative aim is to reach 90% of collection rate of glass all over Europe. And we are, let's say, educating consumers also, to properly collect the glass so that it's recycled. And we are really proud of this because in some cases, as Vetropack, we are directly, inviting schools, in your factories, and also making some campaigns in the newspapers to really, explain to the citizens why it is so important to properly collect packaging, in our case, glass, because it's really valuable. It's a pity, that it finishes in the landfill. So I think that's it. And thank you very much. And I will be very happy, to speak with you and to maybe answer some questions.
Thank you so much. So far, what you have presented actually looks quite optimistic, and if consider that it will reduce the impact on the nature, and with the proper, educational effort, I think it really makes sense. But let's see with Tatiana, what are the consumer preferences? How do you?
So yes, hello. Can you hear me well?
Yes, very well.
Yes, I'm honored to be here. Good afternoon to everybody, to Moldovan market. So I'm Tanja Gaspar, also from Vetropack, on the position of Group Marketing Manager. And hereby, I'll try to explain more from consumers' perspective, market perspective, about the wine trends itself, then going deeper to the wine packaging, and then even deeper to the glass wine packaging, and explaining more about what do we do to respond to all of the challenges explained by Adeline and Nicolas, and how it's possible to educate more consumers about the littering and recycling and disposal of packaging. So as first, I suppose you are the market, this will be all very well known to you, but just to repeat what I found out from all of the researchers, these are the main trends coming out of them. So first is consumers are searching for minimal intervention and even more and more natural wines. They are speaking a lot about sustainability, biodynamics, organics, and so on. So everything in order to avoid the additives that are in commercial usage. So of course, this is still not a high share in total wine, but the trend is going into this direction. The second is very well known that today's market is driven by millennials. They are asking for lower alcohol wines, so that will be the trend also as well. And they are asking for different formats and different flavors. The general truth is about the private labels, that in Europe, almost half of everything we eat, we consume in fast-moving consumer goods, so this is not only regarding wine, is on private labels. So this is not going in favor to brands, which we want to develop and we support a lot, but this is the truth. Let's face it. So we will speak a little bit about these private labels. Is that the threat or maybe also an opportunity? And in the end, already today, so it's not only about the future. There is a digitalization of everything we know, of all the processes from vineyard to the shelf, so to the bottle. I'll just touch a little bit e-commerce and how you should prepare your packaging to be ready for e-commerce, because e-commerce, although is small in maybe in mid-Europe and so on, this trend is also coming. And as I said, how to adjust the packaging as key differentiator from 2 points of view, sustainability and communication. So just as I spoke, formats and flavors could be an opportunity. As first, I see formats are going into 2 directions, who is accelerating the most apart from standard 75 centiliters bottle. 2 directions are, one, into smaller packages, so single serve, from 200 to 365 milliliters, because they are lower out of pocket. Now we are in this period of inflation and economic crisis, so people are also searching for more, cheaper, lower out of pocket, and it's good because when you open it, the quality is still, the wine is very fresh, so quality is on a very high level. On another side, there is a trend. We see that magnums are accelerating a lot. So you can see on those photos, there is one, even a 6-pack of small packaging, so this trial packaging, how this company is even trying to generate the demand. So this is like entry format, let's put it this way. And then later on, you shift your consumers to the bigger packages. And on the below, you can see the example that there are even the companies that are selling and focusing only to bigger formats, like Magnum company in the UK. This is good, of course, because it's driving the volume consumption for the parties and so on. And regarding the flavors, it's all about rosé and sparkling wine, especially Prosecco in the last years. Prosecco having 36% of the growth rate in last 3 years in Western Europe. So what is proving this the best is this photo on the right up. It's from England. So you see there is a huge space giving to those kind of formats and flavors. So knowing that you are from Moldova exporting a lot, that might be opportunity. Of course, I know that you're already playing into this area, but just to give you heads up. As I said before, the private labels are really on the rise. 50% of the volume share, 33% in average of value share. For the wine, this is 35%. And the truth is that they are the fastest growing, so they will grow even more. They are driven by consumers, because consumers are seeking value for money, so they don't want to give up the quality, but they are more experimental, and this is also opportunity for you as Moldovan nationality, because before it was all about France, Italian, California, you know, really globally very well-known destination. And from another side, private labels are driven very much by discounters, because discounter as the sales retail channel are the fastest growing, both in Western Europe, but in Eastern Europe, plus 24%. So basically they are taking share from the supermarkets and hypermarkets. So why I'm saying this is just, it's good to develop the brands and of course, but maybe also to see if there are some options to come in the deal with those discounters, and to develop the premium private label, because obviously, it's always like win with the winners. So if you are not in the discounters, you cannot reach certain market. Discounters are always the threat because of lower pricing, lower profitability, but the proper business case must be made. this is the truth, and that they are fastest growing and they are huge. So we cannot avoid the truth. That's my only point here. The third thing, as I mentioned, is digital technology. Two directions I would like to point out. One is Internet of Packaging. So all the technologies such as QR codes, smart labels, even the chips in the future. Let's partner, or you partner also with the other companies in other areas, but this is something what we all need to develop our competencies in and to work on it. It is going to be very, very soon and very relevant. And this is driven also partially by e-commerce, although not so much developed in Eastern Europe. In China, more than 20% of the bottles are sold online. In UK, I don't have the data about the wine as category, but 20% of total grocery last year was spent online, was purchased online. So this is huge. So as said, all the trends are coming also nearer to us. Let's be ready for it and invest into these competencies. When we speak about the packaging itself, and not to speak only about the glass, of course, there are trials and trends that the other packaging is developing. So plastic, of course, I saw just an example that one of the retailers in UK changed over a whole range of small bottles to plastic. But of course, we must be aware of all positive and negative aspects. Cans also, especially in the USA, but they are still a very minor portion of the overall global industry. They are convenient, and this is what is driving this. Bag-in-box, already very well known, its long history, very popular in Nordics, over 50% of the total volume. UK and Australia has got this format very well developed. And as Nicola said, when we are speaking about premiumization and how to differentiate yourself on the shelf, it's about the special designs with some frosted surfaces or embossing or whatever you could do to premiumize your packaging. So this is one of the examples also that received the Red Dot Award. There are also attention to produce the wooden bottles and paper bottles, but conclusion here is that all the trends in the packaging will be driven and are driven by consumer acceptance. So, of course, that how fast plastic will become larger or maybe will disappear. It depends on what consumer think is that taste still good, or they just connect wine in plastic with some low quality and cheap wines. But also by regulations, as Adeline explained everything. We need to pay attention to regulations, and it's also the question of what is first, regulation impacting consumers or consumers influencing regulations. So of course this is going to be a process. Still, apart from all packaging, glass is the king in wine, and this is also proven by the research that FEVE conducted in Europe on more than 4,000 of consumers, and where the main conclusion is that almost a third of consumers are buying more products in glass packaging than 3 years ago, and that 80% of consumers believe that glass is as a material for the future. So being time mindful, I will not go into all of those data. I suppose you will get the presentation also in written as the file. So regarding also this in glass, and as Nicola said, one of the most important is to reduce the weight, and this is how we can cut the energy and material consumption and reduce CO2 emission. So for a standard 75 centiliters bottle, that means 50 gram of reduction. So having 350 gram instead of 400 gram. There is a calculation here in the table for a couple of bottles. But what I would like also to mention here, it's not related to whole Europe. It's only a UK regulation, but as I know that you exporting also to UK, it might be relevant for you, is that just a week ago, 2 weeks ago, there was an agreement signed by the Wine Society and that agreed to significantly reduce the weight of the standard bottle from current 550 to less than 420 grams. So this is really significantly by the end of 2026. So this is already in 3 years' time. So please pay attention also to this agreement in your business plans. What do we do also on the lightweight? This is only one of the examples that is already realized in Moldova, and it is proving how packaging has helped Purcari's wines to win many prizes all over the world. So in this cooperation, we reduced also 50 grams on the bottle of 400 grams, and as said, there are savings throughout the value chain without compromising on quality, on robustness. The second example from the real business lives, from our case, it's coming from Italy. So we are proactively doing the portfolio shift to the lightweight, and this is leading basically also to the growth in sparkling wine. We are working on complete review of assortment. So this is only one of the example how on Collio bottle we reduced from 720 to 660 grams. And what I believe is the major innovation and really the step change in the bottling, for now more oriented to returnable system, but it will have the major impact also to the other segment, is the innovation Nicolas mentioned, and this is Ecovy. This is sorry, just to say, for bottles there is always a challenge because it's quite heavy and because it can be broken, of course, and that's why it's not convenient for consumers. How we came up with this innovation a long time ago, started to work on it, and we are trying to reduce those challenges. And this is how we came up with the Ecovy, that is at the same time lighter, so 30% lighter than a standard bottle, using less materials, but it looks much better. So even after up to 40 cycles, and Adeline was speaking about the cycles in returnable bottles, this bottle has significantly less scuffing. It's still shiny and beautiful thanks to the thermal strengthening technology that we are applying. This is really the unique technology in Vetropack only. Apart from better appearance, there is high performance. So we see less breakages in industrial use, but also afterwards. So through whole process in filling, transport, and from consumer perspective. And what is the most important, apart from saving, financial saving, there is this sustainability effect, so CO2 reduction driven both by transport, but also because you can use it a significantly higher number of cycles. And we already proved this. We've got the tested concept with one of the brewery in Austria. We've got it in market for over 3 years. So everything what I presented is basically proven. It's the truth. You can read more on our website, not to go now into the details. We also received many awards behind this innovation. And although we did not test it, I'm asking myself, maybe this is also a potential option for sparkling wines. I believe in order to be proactive and innovative and to look in the future, there is always an option for joint development, to cooperate together and to test the new things, the new options. And at the end, just a couple of slides already explained by Adeline, but to help us understand how we can all educate consumers on disposal and recycling. So on those FEVEV websites, you can see that also you as in B2B, so as a producer, you can join the movement called Every Last Bottle. This campaign just started, and it's quite easy. Everything starts with the information, which is the key, and then to really recycle more and better and lead by example. And there are also two another things good to know from the aspect how also you can lead this education towards consumers. And first one was mentioned also by Adeline. It's 90 minutes to close the loop. You can join to those series of the insights on case studies and best practices. And the third one is a glass hallmark, also introduced by Adeline. So to understand how glass adds value, what is the best in it, and you can find out why you should be packaging your product in glass, and learn what the container glass industry is doing to support a climate neutral future. So whatever you are interested in, you can always consult those links and website, but you can also contact us back. And basically, that would be all from my side. As the takeaway, I'm coming back to my first slide about the trends. So trends are here. I said different formats, different flavors, private labels, digitalization, e-commerce, and we cannot change them for sure. We can influence them a little bit, especially in our near area. But for sure, we can see what are our opportunities in them and fully embrace them and explore those opportunities. So thank you from my side.
Anna, thank you so much for this presentation. It's interesting how we started basically with the discussion about packaging and regulatory trends on packaging, and we ended up in discussing about these marketing trends. Very valuable, I believe, information for the participants who are representing wine industry and why not beer industry as well. I know that both associations have been invited on this discussion, but we will be promoting, of course, this presentation so that they can catch up on the newest trends, which I believe to be a very valuable source of information. And indeed, glass packaging is a fantastic packaging from the perspective of circularity and reuse and all that. However, still plastic packaging, it's quite difficult to totally replace, as it is being a very convenient packaging material for so many goods. And the next presentation will be about products where the packaging material is mostly plastic, but still they're being very creative in trying to redesign it so that they create less volume and less impact on the nature. But before we go to the next speaker, to stay a bit in the zone of glass and wine industry or other beverages, maybe I can take a couple of questions from the audience so that it is still fresh in mind, the information we've got on the glass packaging and on the beverages industry in this regard. Colegi, ca să ne ținem cumva, ca să rămânem un pic pe dimensiunea de sticlă și containere și packaging de sticlă, eu vă invit să adresați careva întrebări. So we've got a question from Vitaly. I have seen in the market olive oil in glass bottles. Do you have as clients for glass bottles, for example, sunflower oil producers that bottle and put on market sunflower oil in glass bottles? Sorry, that was because I was quite confused by the glass word. Okay, so it's glass bottles, of course. Who can take this one? How about packaging oil, sunflower oil?
I can answer. Yes, we do produce the bottles also for the oil. I think it's the best that maybe we take each other contacts and then communicate directly. I can send the link with our portfolio, what is available and what are the options.
Yeah, and
Maybe.
I can add also, I can add to that, for example, I'm based in Italy, and I can tell you that, yeah, in Italy, a lot of oil is sold in glass bottles. This is also perceived as a higher quality of oil. I would say probably most of the oil in Italy is sold in glass bottles.
Okay, so this is quite a trend already, right?
Bună ziua!
Bună ziua! Noi vom continua cu prezentarea în română acum.
Ok.
Cristina, acum intrăm în zona de best practices.
Exact.
Deci v-am invitat ca să faceți o prezentare a practicilor voastre sau a tendințelor din compania voastră pentru a revedea cum vă împachetați produsele, ce să faceți astfel încât să vă asigurați că ambalajele în care sunt împachetate produsele voastre mai puțin poluează mediul, că cumva în continuare cei care sunt consumatorii produselor voastre rămân în siguranță, că compania ține la amprenta sa asupra mediului și cumva vrea să o reducă. Și știu că nu este foarte simplu în cazul plasticului. Noi avem acum ca un exemplu acum care este foarte popular, sticlele de apă mai nou au capacele fixate de sticlă. Și știu că multă lume nu prea înțelege de ce aceasta se întâmplă, ori aceasta este o inovație în domeniul acestui tip de ambalaj pentru a nu lăsa capacele și a le colecta împreună cu sticlă. Treptat, eu cred că tot mai multe inovații de genul acesta vor fi cumva propuse producătorilor ca să rezolve anumite probleme legate de colectarea ambalajelor. Spune-ne tu, te rog, ce faceți voi în această direcție.
Eu o să mă prezint din nou. Sunt Cristina Lefter, sunt reprezentanta companiei Herbalife în Republica Moldova. Funcția mea este Business Development Supervisor. Eu sunt responsabilă de buna funcționare a tuturor proceselor de la noi din țară și de dezvoltarea afacerii la nivel local. Deci, despre Herbalife probabil ați auzit mai multe lucruri. Eu am să vorbesc pe scurt câteva lucruri generale despre companie. Deci, Herbalife există în 95 de țări. În Republica Moldova am deschis reprezentanța în 2012. Suntem o companie de multilevel marketing prin care furnizăm produse de nutriție internă și de îngrijire a pielii, corpului și a tenului feței. Distribuim, ajungem la consumatorul final prin distribuitorii noștri, membrii Herbalife independenți, care le oferă, pe lângă faptul că le oferă produsele, comercializează, dar și le oferă o consiliere de nutriție fiecărui client și astfel îi încurajează să adopte un stil de viață activ și sănătos și o nutriție echilibrată. Angajamentul companiei este să realizeze 50 de milioane de impacte pozitive până în 2030, la aniversarea companiei de 50 de ani. Și aici avem un slide cu câteva date despre companie la nivel global. Noi nu o să ne oprim la fiecare din ele, o să menționez doar câteva cele mai generale. Deci, conform Euromonitor, Herbalife este declarată marca numărul 1 la nivel global pentru nutriție și well-being și un stil de viață activ și sănătos. Avem peste 10.000 de angajați, avem peste 300 de oameni de știință, dintre care 50 de doctori în știință. Deci aceste date sunt pentru 2022, ele sunt publice, deci le puteți căuta pe internet și le puteți accesa. Din gama de produse pe care avem existent acum la nivel global, sunt peste 130 de produse din câteva categorii. La baza acestor produse stă un proces destul de minuțios ce țin de fabricare, care se numește de la sămânță la consumator sau from seed to feed. Avem un sistem de control al calității destul de riguros. Deci compania a investit peste 300 de milioane de dolari în producție și în programe de asigurare a calității produselor pentru a asigura conformitatea acestora la nivel regional și global. Deci toate produsele sunt testate cu ajutorul organismelor terțe certificate pentru a verifica iarăși calitatea acestora. Toate laboratoarele noastre dețin calificarea ISO 17025 și NSF, care este un organism de certificare a standardelor globale și care asigură calitatea produselor. Ca și strategii și direcții, avem aceste 3 idei: reduce, reuse, recycle, sau reduce, refolosește, reciclează. Deci, cu toții cunoaștem care este impactul plasticului asupra mediului și că cantitatea de plastic folosit, care este non-biodegradabil, dăunează mediului și sănătății umane. Și aici avem niște date că au fost înregistrate 50 de milioane de tone de plastic s-au folosit în Uniunea Europeană, în țările Herbalife în Uniunea Europeană în 2020. Și iată, compania, ca să prevină aceste efecte, și-a setat câteva obiective ce ține de sustenabilitate. Și anume eliminarea și reducerea folosirii plasticului, minimizarea deșeurilor pentru a evita poluarea aerului, reducerea impactului asupra resurselor naturale prin utilizarea eficientă a resurselor și deșeurilor, minimizarea emisiilor de CO2 sau amprente de carbon, prin eficiențe operaționale, deci folosirea materialelor sustenabile la crearea ambalajelor și altor elemente și aprovizionarea responsabilă și rezonabilă ca Ideea ar fi aici selectarea cu atenție a furnizorilor care îmbrățișează aceleași valori, aceleași scopuri de aprovizionare echitabilă, sustenabilă și transparentă pentru a proteja oamenii și planeta în general. Și în continuare o să vorbesc despre câteva proiecte pe care le-am implementat în cadrul companiei. Deci, la baza acestor proiecte stau câteva echipe, deci din cadrul companiei care sunt responsabili de la fiecare etapă și anume unele din ele este vorba despre echipa de marketing, echipa de legal, echipa de cercetare și analiză, echipa de testare și așa mai departe și altele. Deci unul din proiecte este Plastic Scoop Removal. Noi ne-am propus ca să reducem cantitatea de plastic folosită în cadrul companiei și anume, deci acest proiect îl vom implementa, el este implementat deja la nivel global, dar în Republica Moldova va fi începând din noiembrie. Avem deja toate testările făcute și îl vom avea și la noi. Deci, situația la moment este că noi avem în jur de 15 produse care conțin linguri din plastic în interiorul acestora și mai avem o lingură multifuncțională ca și SKU separat, care ajută la dozarea produselor sau shake-urilor și altor produse. Și iată, ne-am propus ca să eliminăm, să le scoatem în genere din gama de produse. Respectiv, ca o soluție a fost să introducem lingurile din trestie de zahăr, care sunt disponibile pentru cumpărare ca articol opțional pentru membri. Le avem în 10 mărimi disponibile, deci în la noi avem un produs Collagen Skin Booster, iată, noi îl vom implementa pentru acest produs deocamdată, ulterior o să vină și celelalte. Deci un alt proiect este implementarea și adoptarea ambalajelor și articolelor eco-friendly. Ne-am propus să reducem plasticul prin introducerea pungilor de hârtie, la fel prin introducerea paharelor din carton și certificarea, ne bucurăm pentru certificarea FSC. Deci FSC este o organizație internațională axată pe conservarea și refacerea pădurilor din întreaga lume, precum și protejării faunei pădurilor ca și spațiu verde și a comunităților dependente de silvicultură. Deci acest logo este pus pe fiecare cutie din cadrul de la noi din depozit și noi livrăm comenzile în aceste cutii. Deci cu toții cunoaștem că pădurile și spațiile verzi joacă un rol vital în menținerea unei planete sănătoase. La fel ne-am propus să scoatem și am realizat, de fapt, să scoatem cantitatea de hârtie utilizată în cutiile de livrare. Am eliminat la fel divizoarele din carton din interiorul cutiei și am introdus pernele de aer din 50% plastic reciclat. Deci această inițiativă este implementată în alte țări, deci la noi, Republica Moldova, urmează să fie. Și în continuare o să vă rog să fiți atenți la ecran pentru un filmuleț prin care o să arătăm cum are loc procesul de reciclare ce ține de cutiile de shake-uri, doar că acest proces este deocamdată valabil în Statele Unite, pentru că este format din o doză din material de PCR, deci este vorba despre rășină post-consum, este un material realizat din plastic reciclabil, ce oferă o sursă mai durabilă pentru fabricarea ambalajelor.
How our Formula One canisters are produced. When canisters are sent to recycling, they're put through a process where they're broken down into small plastic pellets called post-consumer resin, or PCR. The PCR pellets are then mixed into a molder with virgin plastic to create a brand new canister. We then put them through a cleaning process. So each canister is ready to be filled, weighed, labeled, and shipped to a local Herbalife Nutrition distribution center. From there, the canister is ready to be sent to or picked up by an Herbalife Nutrition independent distributor and available for their customers. This process contributes to reduced plastic use, less waste, and a smaller carbon footprint. Remember to recycle and support our efforts to promote a sustainable future. How our
Așa. Deci, următorul proiect este parteneriatul cu Plastic Bank. Plastic Bank este o întreprindere socială care construiește ecosisteme de reciclare pentru a preveni poluarea cu plastic din oceane. Prin acest parteneriat, compania își propune să prevină intrarea a peste 400.000 de kilograme de plastic până la finalul anului curent în oceane. Și această inițiativă vine ca o continuare la alte inițiative care le avem la nivel global și local, și anume Green Office Initiatives. Deci noi la Centrul de Vânzări din Chișinău am creat un tomberon în formă de un shake Formula 1. L-am implementat acest proiect în mai 2022 și am reușit să reciclăm până în prezent circa 600 de kilograme de plastic. Pentru că pentru noi sustenabilitatea este o parte esențială a procesului de îmbunătățire a vieții, ne străduim întotdeauna să venim cu inovații. Și aici am vrut să arăt un sondaj pe care compania l-a realizat la nivel global. Deci, de fapt, compania practică astfel de inițiative, organizează odată la ceva timp sondaje printre comunitate și consumatori ca să afle opinia lor. Și deci ne-am propus aici să analizăm 5 idei de sustenabilitate. Este vorba despre green manufacturing, adică producerea care nu dăunează mediului, green packaging, ambalare sustenabilă, reforestation, care înseamnă reîmpădurire, maximă nutriție și minimă împachetare și nutriție pe bază de plante. Și vedem că avem, deci răspunsul de reîmpădurire a ocupat cel mai mare procent, 29%, green manufacturing 27%, apoi plant-based nutrition 19%, green packaging 16% și ultimul răspuns a avut 9%. Deci de aici noi cumva ne înțelegem că într-adevăr pentru consumatori contează foarte mult ca să avem un mediu verde, să avem un mediu sănătos, pentru că de fapt pădurile au un rol foarte important în viața omului și a planetei în general. Și aici avem câteva directive legislative. Compania pentru toate inițiativele sale de sustenabilitate se aliniază întotdeauna cu directivele europene și aici sunt două cele mai importante. Este vorba despre regulamentul Comisiei Europene din 2008 privind materialele și articolele din plastic reciclat destinate să intre în contact cu alimentele și a doua este directiva Uniunii Europene din 2019 privind reducerea impactului anumitor produse din plastic asupra mediului. Urmează și altele, după care le respectă compania. Aici sunt în engleză, le-am lăsat așa ca să nu schimb contextul. Și o să închei prezentarea cu un alt filmuleț. Este nou-nouț, creat în companie. Deci este vorba despre o campanie Inside Herbalife care are la bază faptul ca să arate comunității cum au loc procesele. Deci în filmulețe de obicei sunt angajații companiei din diferite departamente care povestesc despre specificul lucrului pe care îl fac în departamentul lor și în câteva detalii despre companie în ansamblu. Vă rog să fiți atenți la ecran. Este în engleză.
Sustainability is really important to us. It's at the core of everything we do. We have taken great steps to improve sustainability within our supply chain by selecting sustainable suppliers, by reducing energy use, reduce our carbon footprint in general. This also means reducing plastics or turning them into recyclable plastics, reducing carton where we can, reducing paper, and of course, reduce waste wherever we can. It's much bigger than just the focus on waste. It was also about being a sustainable employer, making sure we create a nice working environment for our people, ensure people are treated equally. People work together here in order to innovate and inspire change. The sustainability initiative I'm most proud of is the project we implemented a few years ago based on an idea that came from staff that our Formula One food waste is now being reprocessed into animal feed and used by local farmers.
Cristina, mulțumesc mult! Suntem optimiști că ambalajele produselor voastre nu vor fi stocate undeva în natură, dar vor fi reciclate, așa cum voi v-ați aventurat să o faceți, reduse ca volum din ceea ce am văzut în primul rând și într-al doilea rând reciclate. Eu doar o întrebare am la tine, dacă voi, echipele locale, aveți un cuvânt de spus la, să zic așa, crearea ideilor acestea inovative în partea de revizuire a ambalajelor sau sunteți nevoiți doar să le preluați de la compania mamă?
Nu, deci noi avem frâu liber în generarea ideilor, deci niciodată n-a fost o interdicție ca să venim să implementăm doar strict ceea ce este de la regional. Întotdeauna am fost încurajați ca să venim și noi cu idei, deci chiar și la crearea denumirilor de produse există această inițiativă, că dacă cineva din echipe are anumite idei mai speciale, pot veni și este chiar de încurajat. Dar, în principal, cele mai mari proiecte vin de la regional. Dar, iarăși, cum am menționat, dacă cineva din echipele locale are un cuvânt de spus, neapărat îl poate spune.
Bine, însă presupun că odată ce regional vor fi noile obligații cu privire la reciclare și la redesignul ambalajelor, cu siguranță că ele cumva vor fi implementate și în activitatea noastră. Și vă dorim succes! Călin, ai așteptat mult până ca să ai și tu cuvântul. Uite că din prezentarea Cristinei am văzut că trendul este de a reduce volumul de ambalajele care sunt folosite. În cazul vostru, da, ceea ce este bine. În cazul vostru e vorba de ambalaje de carton, corect? Carton, hârtie, probabil, da? Și a reduce ca și volum, ca și greutatea ambalajelor, ca și straturi de ambalaje. Și atunci ce faceți voi? Ce mai vindeți? Nu știu dacă puteți să faceți mai ușoară hârtia, care este deja foarte ușoară. Nu știu care ar fi acum, adică intuiesc bine că sunt în domeniul respectiv ca și AmCham, dar spune-ne tu, ce sunt trenduri regulatorii care de fapt, să zic așa, afectează, dar nu afectează, de fapt reprezintă un cadru pentru activitatea voastră și care sunt preferințele recente ale consumatorilor în partea de ambalaje. Am văzut și trendurile care sunt regional și presupun că și local și care ar fi provocările aici în piață pentru voi ca și producători de ambalaje.
Bună ziua! Mai întâi cred că o să încep cu a mă prezenta, sunt Călin Harti, sunt fondator și singur și director, și de aia cred că mi-a venit greu să mă conectez astăzi după 3 calculatoare și până la urmă am luat telefonul. Îmi cer scuze pentru că nu am o prezentare teoretică cum ați făcut-o cei dinainte, adică mi-a plăcut foarte mult ceea ce a vorbit Adelin. Dacă mă aude și cred că o să vreau să iau un contact cu dumneaei.
Dumnezeu a lăsat aici contactele, fiindcă a fost nevoie
ok.
să se deconecteze. Noi avem contactele ei și cu siguranță ne putea face legătură.
Da, mi-a plăcut prezentarea Taniei, Nicolas, chiar salut toate ideile sustenabilității, fiindcă suntem producători și dacă mă înțeleg sau au un traducător, chiar este o vorbă la noi în popor, mă alătur cuvintelor lor. Adică de obicei când cineva nu și are de spus la masă de sărbătoare ceva, așa și eu. Adică chiar mi-a plăcut mult că mi-ați lăsat cuvântul după, deoarece foarte mult include și era bine că și în engleză, fiindcă nu cred că voi putea așa de bine să expun toate ideile. Ceea ce ține de sustenabilitate, sincer, voi face un tur. Acum, recent, noi am schimbat showroom-ul nostru și chiar la sfârșit, ca să termin cu o notă, cum a făcut-o Tania, cu inovația noastră, care suntem unici de 2 ani și ne chinuim să promovăm caserolele din carton pe piață pentru a le înlocui pe cele din plastic. Voi finisa la sfârșit ca să fie o concluzie și să înțeleagă cei care ne urmăresc cu ce ne ocupăm, ce producem și ce încercăm să aducem. Fiindcă următoarea noastră provocare chiar ne dorim să devenim producători de cei ce from waste, recycled, cei ce rămâne nouă, avem 100% de maculatură sau să zic deșeuri curate pe care le putem recicla și este în plan, dar sperăm să mergem înainte cu evoluția, adică ceea ce facem acum. Am trecut în fabrică nouă, de asta ne vine greu și nu am reușit adică chiar mâine vine macaraua, mai avem jumătate din utilaje să le mutăm. Am fost într-o chirie și acum ne-am mutat în fabrica noastră. Ceea ce ține de ambalajă. Vreau să vă spun că tendința este tot mai mult de a trece la hârtie, carton, reciclare. Unul din prezentatorii de astăzi este Vetropac, ceea ce cred că cunoaște, mai mult cred că Nicolas ar trebui să știe. A fost o tendință enormă până la război din Ucraina să fie folosit cartonul virgin paper, adică era mai mult folosit hârtia din copaci, extract din copac. Acum, în urma acestor, mulți din clienții noștri, nu știu, 600, 900 cam, adică fiindcă sunt și clienți mari, clienți mici, sunt supărați, dar trendul este de a folosi cât mai mult hârtie reciclată. Este un pic mai slabă sau nu este atât de dură ca hârtia virgină, dar pentru economie și pentru energia verde sau nu știu cum să zic, să spun așa, pentru viitor este mult mai bine. Dacă să continui inovațiile, am zis că o las la sfârșit, provocările sunt că tot timpul o companie micuță cum este a noastră, suntem 35 de angajați, adică nu suntem ca și Vetropac sau chiar Herbalife. Mă bucur că m-ați ales, adică ca un mic antreprenor, ceea ce sigur că ne dorim și eu și echipa să creștem și să avem un impact cât mai mare asupra schimbării ambalajelor și modelului de afacere al multor din clienții noștri.
Călin, eu am o întrebare, numai o întrebare rapidă. Clienții când vin la voi și încep a lucra cu voi, cum motivează faptul că trec de la caserole de plastic la caserole de hârtie, de carton? Sunt din ăștia care migrează acum.
Sigur, da. Dacă să începem migrația, mi-a plăcut prezentarea Herbalife Cristina. Cristina mi-a plăcut cum a zis că trebuie să reducem din ambalaje și încearcă. Așa îi conving și eu pe clienții noștri și încerc să le personalizez ambalajele. Aici este un atu a nostru pe care îl folosim pentru a convinge clientul să treacă din plastic în carton. Fiindcă cartonul, deoarece Republica Moldova este o piață mică și față de... Nu avem, adică s-a vorbit de export mai sus, dar mi-aș dori să avem o cantitate sau să mergem un pic mai sus. Și așa îi convingem pe clienții noștri ca să le putem personaliza ambalajele. Haideți, pot să ies dacă îmi permiteți, totuși m-ați întrebat, fiindcă chiar aici pe masă am ceea ce a vorbit Adelin, am să întorc, așa. Chiar aici am pe masă sticlele de bere de la colț, este al nostru. Adică chiar este ceva care se schimbă și trebuie să-i facem o cutie nouă. Aici am o prezentare de la Fructico. Toți ați văzut Fructico 6 mieri, caserole de 6 mieri. Mi-au adus-o din Germania ca să producem ceva nou. Nu știu dacă este cineva în magazin. Aici puteți să vedeți chiar și căsuța. O facem și căsuță pentru copii ca să fie interesant. Aici sunt sacoșele noastre, să zic așa, pungile noastre, adică aceste pungi, prima întrebare noastră care m-ați întrebat a fost dacă folosim o hârtie mai subțire. Sigur că trendul este ca prețurile, cum a spus Tania mai sus, să fie mai ieftin și să încercăm să dăm clienților, fiindcă ei aleg de la raft un produs, ceea ce este înăuntru, adică ceea ce este interior, nu ceea ce este ambalat. Și sigur că noi ne străduim, aceasta este tendința, aici o să vă arăt, dar nu știu dacă video se va vedea, dar aici este o hârtie mai mult din maculatură. Aici este o hârtie virgin, aici este o hârtie mai mult din maculatură. Video nu cred că se vede, dar tendința este să trecem. Aici sunt unii din clienții noștri care sunt, hai să zic așa, locali. Asta este la export, asta este o tendință de a exporta și un băiat din Ialoveni, Costești, care duce fiecare kilogram de poamă, îl duce nu în caserol din carton, dar din hârtie. Restul sunt burgeri, pâine și tot așa. Aici sunt colegii mei. Să zic așa, hai că să terminăm pe notă pozitivă și în termeni buni. Asta este ceea ce am dezvoltat eu și mă chinui de 2 ani de zile să schimb trendul, adică vreau să la rafturile numărul 1 pe gaz au văzut Linel, au văzut acestea care noi l-am inovat sau să zic suntem primii și care încercăm să-l promovăm în Republica Moldova. Este foarte greu, fiindcă plasticul este mult mai popular în rândul oamenilor. Asta este ceea ce facem, adică producătorii mici vin la noi și noi reușim să le personalizăm și să le punem datele lor de contact. Și, hai să zic așa, chiar mi-era în plan să vă povestesc. Foarte mulți din clienții noștri își doresc așa cutii cu fereastră. Deoarece ele nu pot fi reciclate, noi deseori refuzăm. Adică noi nu ne dorim ca să avem așa tipuri de cutii, fiindcă ele nu pot merge, nu sunt sustenabile. Și de-aia noi ne ținem de cutiile, chiar și, dacă vedeți, cutii pentru flori am încercat, chiar și cutii ca să înlocuim plasticul. Aici sunt cutii de burger, da, să nu punem în plastic. Aici sunt cutiile de pizza, cel mai mult ceea ce vindem. Sunt cutiile de biscuiți. Nu știu, torturi, cadouri, caserole, adică avem o varietate foarte mare. Am să schimb ca să nu fiu așa. Și voi continua, cred că, în oficiu. Cam asta este prezentarea și încerc să vă spun că mă bucur mult că clienții clienții, adică își doresc să fie mai puțin, să polueze mai puțin.
Dar cu cine lucrați pe partea de procesare a deșeurilor de ambalaje de hârtie?
Aici este și o întrebare. Îmi pare rău că Adeline nu mă aude, dar voi contacta numai decât. A apărut o schimbare într-o lege, ceea ce a fost copiată și eu sunt un critic dur. Astăzi este prima dată când vorbesc public despre asta. Noi am schimbat legea, toți aderăm la o asociație, dar ce se face după acestea? Adică astăzi avem, cred că una din cele mai mari companii este Bravo, fiindcă ei, într-adevăr, careva din ambalaje reciclează, dar în rest, ceea ce ține la nivelul produselor noastre din carton, ele ajung în piață, dar ele sunt exportate. Și îmi pare foarte rău, fiindcă astăzi nu avem un reciclator mare ca să putem readuce la viață ambalajele care ajung în piață. Nu știu, plasticul cumva se mai prelucrează. Sticla, chiar mă bucur, Vetropacă s-au dezvoltat atât de mult și ne ajută și pe noi ca să creștem exporturile, să creștem producerea, să avem angajați. Dar în domeniul cartonului este un pic cam problematic. Avem, cred că, doi producători doar, doi, să zic așa, reciclatori care refac sau le dau viață din nou.
Poate este o altă notă pozitivă cu care putem finaliza, faptul că este loc de business în domeniul procesării deșeurilor de hârtie, fiindcă sunt și ținte impuse legislativ pentru colectarea de hârtie.
Da.
Eu cred că deja subiectul colectării și procesării acestui tip de deșeu este subiectul unei alte discuții, unui alt seminar. Sunt într-adevăr cei care gestionează sistemele colective. Cu siguranță că ei au răspunsuri la întrebarea aceasta în momentul în care ei preiau deșeurile și au responsabilitatea pentru ca să le valorifice. Cu siguranță ei au răspunsuri cum le valorifică și urmează doar să aveți discuții cu ei. Dar, într-adevăr, partea de procesare aici local la noi ar fi o discuție interesantă și o oportunitate.
Nu, eu n-am vrut, scuze, Pati, eu nu am vrut să spun că sunt partea negativă. Orice critică sau orice discuție face ca să schimbăm lucrurile. Adică eu nu vin aici să zic că este foarte rău sau este foarte dur. Nu sunt dur cu asta. Eu mai bine spun lucrurilor de asta și fac parte din acest seminar că vreau să schimbăm ceva, vreau să creștem, vreau să mergem înainte și eu cred că fac bine, fiindcă atunci când tacem, noi nu facem lucrurile să se miște înainte. Și de-aia eu cred că chiar este bine că a apărut legea nouă și oamenii vor fi mai responsabili. Chiar și eu voi fi mai responsabil atunci când vom scrie factura. Noi vom fi obligați să scriem cantitatea care va fi reciclată. Și eu cred că este bine. Să terminăm pe notă pozitivă dacă mi-ați spus că ceva, că vin cu critici. Adică trebuie schimbată, pur și simplu.
De acord. Colegi, eu iarăși revin la voi cu invitația de a pune întrebări sau a comenta cele prezentate de vorbitorii de astăzi. Eu, în primul rând, vreau să vă mulțumesc că noi deja suntem mai mult de 2 ore în discuție și o bună parte din voi rămân în continuare și ne ascultă cu atenție. Se găsesc voluntari de a comenta.
Avem în chat o întrebare.
Așa, în chat este un comentariu, de fapt, de la Olga Tarakanova, și un comentariu și o întrebare. Question with respect to sustainability culture. What, in your experience, is the best balance between restrictive and rewarding approaches in implementing recycling and decreasing the package waste? Da, ca să răspund de la mine, Nicola, you go on with that.
Yeah, I will try to answer to this question. I'm not sure I understand, but I think both approaches are necessary to push for sustainability. So it is important that, the European Union, or let's say the governments, set some minimal requirements because otherwise, nothing will happen. And, like reusability or recyclability, if the European Union doesn't say, I don't know, every packaging has to be recyclable by 2030, we'll never get there. So it's really important to have also, legal requirements. And also it's important to have a fair competition, because sometimes, of course, to be more sustainable, we cost more. So it's important that the governments push for it. And then also a rewarding approach also is worked, because we know that, consumers, want to have more sustainable packaging. So also it's not only about, minimal legal requirements, it's also about, differentiating your product, being more sustainable. And this is a lot of opportunity. So this is why I think, both approaches are necessary. And I don't think we need to see it, only as, a risk that we have to just to address, but it's also an opportunity. And this is my thinking.
Yes, voluntary compliance is very important, because when you are elaborating a regulation which is based on population and citizens' involvement, like collection of waste, it is very important that the voluntary compliance is assured, because otherwise companies cannot comply to those regulatory requirements, right? And yeah, but people have to get the necessary education and the change of mentality, so that they contribute within their part in this supply chain.